Hello, my name is Chris Blumquist, Director of Marketing at eSkill, and I'm so excited to be here with you all today. In this session, we're going to cover why organizations are embracing skills-based hiring. You'll learn strategies to screen out bad fits and find candidates who can perform the job by assessing the skills that actually matter. With that, I'll pass the presentation over to Jordan Spear to get us started.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. And welcome, everybody. And thank you, Julie. And my name is Jordan Spear, and I'm the VP of Sales here at eSkill, headquartered out of San Antonio, Texas. I'm going to jump right in after I give us the title of why organizations are embracing skills-based hiring and how testing can help. I'm joined today by Julie Cunningham, the VP of Human Resources at PCS Software out of Houston, Texas, a client of eSkill and an integrator with their Paylocity ATS. So welcome. And Julie, if you'd like to introduce yourself any further, I'll open it up to you.
Hello. No, I think you did a great job.
All right, perfect. So we'll jump right in. Just a little background on eSkill. For all of you that are new or haven't heard of the company, we are a company for over 20 years now that's been delivering tests to candidates through the usage of our clientele, over 19 million candidates to be exact. We've had thousands of customers utilizing the platform in a number of ways to test hard skills within their company or to inbound candidates, cognitive ability tests, behavioral profiles, and of course, candidate fits for open job roles. Just a quick outline and agenda for today. We're going to talk a little bit about the shift in hiring philosophy and the reason eSkill is on this mission. The modern hiring challenge, how assessments power skills-based hiring, maintaining integrity in the age of AI, an ever-increasing challenge for your departments, Julie, I'm sure, and the future of skills-based hiring. All right, first up, the shift in hiring philosophy. Traditional hirings relied heavily upon degrees and experience. They've been used as the proxy for ability. They've been prerequisites to job opportunities, and they've been disqualifiers for candidates in the past and still to some extent continue to be. The graphic on the left there demonstrates a decrease over the number of years from 2017 to 2023, where the share of US job postings required less and less a bachelor's degree. That growing evidence, which is supported by that trend, shows that the formal credentialing is not always a key predictor of performance or potential within a job. And skills-based hiring is the new movement. Understanding how to identify candidates that can come in and have the skills to do the job and aren't limited by those traditional degree requirements, etc. Julie, maybe you could kick off here a little bit by talking about how your organization does or does not require those degrees and other experiences as proxies, or has there been relief from that with your job postings over the last couple of years?
So it's always going to depend on the actual position. There are some where you do want to see degrees. If I'm going to hire a corporate attorney, I would like to see the credentials.
Sure.
But with a lot of our development roles, a lot of our support roles, a lot of our implementation roles, we don't really see that the degree is the determiner of the performance, period, end of story. I really need to test their analytical skills. I need to see how they handle a business case scenario. And I want to make sure that they have the aptitude to perform the functions that we need them to in that role. I'm not going to put an introvert into an extrovert position and expect a positive outcome.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that insight. And we're going to get into that a little bit more too as we move through the presentation and just where people are deriving good candidates that do indeed have those skills and less of that credentialing. Thank you for the insights there. Currently, and this is just a little bit of that momentum we're talking about, over 20 of the US states and tons of cities have removed this degree requirement on the government roles side of the house. Federal initiatives are accelerating that shift. Just spent some time out in Vegas with our company and some of those governmental organizations that are part of that trend as well, and got to learn a lot about that. Very interesting how they're utilizing that to expand their candidate pools in a time where it's tough to find good candidates. And private sector adoption is quickly following, as outlined on the last slide there. Opportunity at Work is estimating that 70 million US workers are STARS. And if you're not familiar with that acronym, it's skilled through alternative routes. Think certifications, think ex-military or veterans that are coming out with skills-based training and are highly qualified to take positions, but don't necessarily carry the normal credentialing. Julie, are there any of those specific STAR groups that you're seeing come into your applicant pools that are turning out to be the best fit for roles, or have you noticed a trend in that?
Absolutely. We see people coming up. For instance, I needed a new implementation specialist. We hired a football coach for a software implementation role, and absolutely has turned out to not only be a success and came up to speed incredibly quickly because he had the right aptitude, but not only that, he's turned out to be an amazing software platform engineer to where he can go and provide the demos to potential customers and explain our entire platform to them. In the past, I never would have put those two together.
Yeah, that's an amazing case study, and I can see the connection there between the skill sets maybe required of a coach and that attention to detail that would carry over into a role like that. And that's a great example that I didn't even mention, from veterans to certifications, and you drew a great line there. So appreciate you expanding on that. Again, just a graphic here to support what we're talking about today in that shift. And some of that shift is coming from the candidate side. This is a little diagram of workers with degrees versus those without today in the market. And you can see the shift that's beginning to occur, which is tightening those candidate pools and the opportunities to get people, so long as we're requiring, say, a bachelor's degree for a position that otherwise isn't an attorney or something like you mentioned, Julie. So just wanted to demonstrate that there. And I think I've already talked a little bit about this, but the why behind that movement, tight labor markets and persistent skills gaps. And again, Julie, you mentioned a degree not necessarily being that determining factor. While it's representative of somebody that was able to stand the test of time over 4 years and complete a goal that they had, it's not necessarily aligned to the direct skills they'll need in the workplace starting tomorrow to be effective when they hit the ground. Employers, they're needing to expand their talent pools. We've got to be able to look down and have enough to choose from in order to find the right people within our jobs that we're trying to fill. And skills-based approaches are promoting this, drawing personalities from alternative backgrounds that have the aptitude is what we're searching for, and is what the mission is here at eSkill, is to help facilitate the ability to do that. Maybe unpack that a little bit more, Julie. How, when you drew that line to the football coach and you said he's going to be the guy, he's got the right skills, how did you go about assessing that or extracting the confidence that those skills would translate properly into that role?
Well, the very first thing that we do once we receive a candidate's resume is put them through the behavioral assessment with eSkill.
Okay.
Okay. I want to know, again, first, I'm not going to put an extrovert into an introvert position, period, in the story. That very quick, easy to finish behavioral assessment. It doesn't scare the candidates away. It is not a 3-hour session with a psychiatrist where they're digging into your brain. It is a quick and easy test that they can take on eSkill. It uploads into Paylocity, so I have it with their records without any trouble for me or my recruiting team. That tells me step one. Do I have the right beginning personality assessment? The next step, we like that. We have a conversation with them. They pass that initial conversation. Another assessment through eSkill to get them to do a variety of tasks and see how they perform. We want to know their organizational skills. We want to know how they would fit in with a group. We want to know how they would interact with a customer and how they would handle a stressful situation. eSkill allows us to do all of that, and I can customize the exact questions I'm looking for so that they're not having to drag it out into a 3-4 hour assessment.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, the multi-use case there, from screening for behavioral all the way to screening for skills, is just part of your process. And I'm sure we'll get into it later, but all of that is integrated seamlessly for you. And and your staff's able to utilize that across the board, I assume.
Yes, they are.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you for that case study there. So let's dig a little bit more into the modern hiring challenge, which, Julie, I know you're going to know all too well. But the post-pandemic hiring's been very difficult. AI has been injected into the scene. It's making it very difficult to differentiate between qualified candidates when everybody's able to appear as a qualified candidate. And that has a snowball effect, not just from a difficulty of identifying the personnel to do the job, but the time required to sift through that, and ultimately then hope that our standard route of doing that generates a positive outcome and we got it right. I know too well, I've been hiring for a while myself, and it is a challenge if there's nothing but your eyeball test and a quick in-person interview, or even worse, if you haven't gotten to that stage and spending the time. Were you going to say something there, Julie?
It's the thing that keeps me up at night.
Well, and it's not going in the other direction. You know, it's not going the way you probably want it to go. It's only getting more entrenched in everyday life. And I kind of alluded to this already. It's posing a volume problem for recruiters when they have tons of applicants and there's too little differentiation, at least on paper. This can lead to a problem of screening fatigue. If we've got 120 applicants for a position, what are the chances we're going to screen all of those thoroughly enough to move the most qualified onto the next round before we're tired of that lengthy process? And so it goes without saying, and it's implied that so many good candidates in that style of process are going to be left off the table or not evaluated properly or taken to next steps. LinkedIn is processing 11,000 applications per minute. And I believe we get into this in a following slide, but it's been very easy for anybody to apply to any role, whether or not they feel qualified and whether or not they've perhaps utilized tools to make themselves look more qualified. And so this trend is continuing in that way. And here at eSkill, we're trying to arm our customers and our clients with tools to dig through that and decipher that effectively and efficiently.
Yes, I can absolutely concur that is happening. It used to be I would get slammed with resumes that had spelling errors and absolutely had no experience whatsoever. With the use of the tools that everybody has at their availability these days, you can go to Copilot and create a beautiful resume full of fluff, and it looks like you actually did the job. So it is becoming more and more imperative that there is a test that you have to be able to take in a very quick and easy manner that doesn't cost an arm and a leg for each candidate going through there. And that becomes the beginning basis of the candidates that we choose to actually call out to.
Sure. Yeah, and you bring up a good point. And like I said, I think we get a little more into AI as we move forward, but the converse of that can be true for somebody like me who's a slow adopter or maybe not a big believer in utilizing AI to fluff my resume. And so many of the departments on the other side are using AI tools to originally judge or filter these for percentage fits and grading. And so many times candidates are being eliminated that probably would have been a great fit, have the skill set, but have chosen not to utilize those tools. And so it's a double-edged sword in that way as well.
Absolutely, it is. It is, because you do see both ends of it. I see, okay, every single resume looks pristinely perfect in every way, but I can tell, especially if they leave the little graphics that AI creates for you in their resume, that this was not anything that they did. They don't put any detail and numbers or metrics or analytical information into their resume. It's all fluff. But then you're right, somebody that's not taking advantage of the tools looks less than stellar because everybody else is getting assistance writing. It's pros and cons, but that's where the eSkill system absolutely becomes our bare minimum to be able to truly assess a candidate at this point.
That's right. If you're coming in and you say you know how to use Excel and you know how to create a pivot chart and you know how to do X, Y, and Z, and you take a test and you don't do it, well, then I guess it's all out in the air at that point. So
absolutely.
And it's just a silly one-off example, but relative. So I talked a little bit about this before, and this is just highlighting just how easy it is for any and everybody. And most of you listening, I'd be surprised if you've never done this. You come across the job and wow, look at that. I think I could do that job. And it's one click on LinkedIn and I'm applied. Why not throw it out there? And not many times when you're doing that, myself included in the past, thought, well, maybe this is bottlenecking somebody's process. Maybe this is convoluting an otherwise qualified candidate pool because I found the right button at the right time. So they're making it easy. It's happening, and it's flooding candidate pools for jobs, both with qualified candidates and unqualified candidates. Mm-hmm. And we've already chatted a little bit about AI generated cover letters and resumes, making it very difficult to distinguish. Mm-hmm. The quality versus quantity dilemma, structured interviews and work samples and validated assessments like you're talking about there, Julie, are stronger signals when it comes to job performance. And what that's assuming then, though, is we've already gotten through the original filtering of all of our applicants, and we've arrived at after this big time suck to a spot now where we're going to devote time to in-person interviews. And so a lot of these qualified on paper candidates are failing to do the job because of skill mismatches that aren't identified. And so now we're kind of transitioning a little bit into what happens when we hire the people that said they could do something and we had no true way other than asking them to their face to validate if that were true. And for the businesses that we work with, it becomes so imperative. We talk a lot about the front end, a lot about the bottleneck, a lot about all the candidates we've got to sift through. But what happens when we're putting the wrong person into the job and they can't do what they said? Now it's becoming a monetary issue for the company and not just a time issue. So again, our mission here is we want to arm HR teams with these objective tools and help them facilitate getting not only through the time crunch on the front end of evaluation, but ensuring the right person with the right skills ends up in the seat and you're not facing a turnover and attrition and skills problem post-hire.
Yes, and you are correct. If I make a bad hire, it costs a lot of time, money, and effort and potential legal consequences that I would love to avoid from the very beginning.
Sure. And maybe later, if we have a little time, I'd love to hear how you evaluate inside of your company the impact of when that happens. Just guessing here, but the fact that you sought out eSkill and sought out a tool and looked to implement it to offset. We usually don't do those things for sheer convenience. There's usually an impactful problem we're trying to solve within our organization when we make those choices. So if we get some time later, I'd love to unpack that with you a little bit.
Sounds good. All
right, now we're going to move on a little bit. And I know we've touched on it on how assessments can power skills-based hiring. Testing what matters. That's what we're doing here. In the pre-hire assessments, we're evaluating practical job-related abilities. It could be digital literacy. It could be critical thinking or problem solving, or it could be, can this person operate a forklift? Any of the above. Our robust content allows our clients to do that for a number of jobs that they're trying to fill and understand that the people they're putting in there are going to actually be able to do that job from a skills-based perspective. It's going to also help you identify candidates that have the right aptitude. Sometimes we're okay at a certain entry-level job bringing on somebody that might not have the skills tomorrow, but do they have the aptitude to learn the job? And then we're gleaning from this what we need to commit to that individual to get them to the spot we want them post-hire. So there's a little bit of that going into this as well. I don't know if you're just using it to vet out candidates based on skills, or if you're saying, you know what, they've got enough of it and they've demonstrated the aptitude through testing, let's bring them on and train them up. I don't know if you have a comment about that, Julie.
Not only that, but if we are at a crossroad of what pay category somebody belongs in,
sure,
they say one thing, we're thinking another thing. eSkills can help us make a determination on where they truly do belong, and if they're an expert at something, then it'll show.
Yeah, that's a great point, and you're not the first person I've heard talk to the usage of the platform in that way, ultimately deciding the level of skill an individual has to put them within a pay set or a pay ranking system for the job. Also, and I'll just add to that, we've seen usage within turned inward to companies within their current employee sets to identify where they're at and where they need to go. And training teams are utilizing that data to develop their training programs and ensure that they're hitting on, touching on, and coaching to the skills gaps that are needed every day within the organization. So another great way the tool can be used and is being used by some of our clients in the market.
Absolutely.
Pre-hire tests, a couple of benefits here. And Julie, you can stop me at any time one of these resonates and you've got something to say about how you've used it, but enabling skills-based hiring, we've talked about that. It's going to align your hiring decisions with the measurable competencies of the candidates, reducing screening time. You know, if I've got 120 applicants, I sure would love to know if only 40 of those are worth even screening before I go through the other 60, 70 that I didn't otherwise need to spend time on. Decreasing hiring costs in that same vein, less time spent to resume, to review, to hire, cuts down on time and saves money for organizations. Then we flip to the other side of after we've made that right decision, the benefit being lower turnover and cutting down on that. Also improving fairness and compliance. A standard evaluation across the board for all candidates for a role creates that and fosters exactly what we're trying to do here with that, and then getting the best candidate from that pool. I don't know if any of those resonate with you more than the other.
Well, as we just are going through our SOC audit at the moment,
Okay.
yes, we absolutely do have to show evidence of fairness through the interview process, and eSkill absolutely presents me with a fantastic document that I can show as evidence, and I highly recommend it.
Sure, very good. That's excellent. Very practical use case there. We don't often speak totally to that, but we love when our customers do because we understand the importance to them there. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
All right, we touched on AI a little bit, Julie, but I think we're going to unpack it here for a couple of slides and just maintaining integrity in that age of AI. Cheating's a strong word, and you know, in school that seems really unethical, but let's be honest, when people need to make a livelihood and they want a job, they're not gonna stop at any end to position themselves best to get that job. And the new tools that are in the market now, be it ChatGPT or any other AI software you've mentioned already, is enabling them to do that, and it's readily available. And so it's blurred the lines between authentic and an assisted candidate when they get to the process. 30% of candidates have been known to cheat on job tests. We've got a lot of these unique data points, and all of them obviously to support the usage of tools like eSkill, but nevertheless important to understand when we're going into the process. And organizations have to protect themselves. You know, it's unfortunate, but the obligation comes back onto the organization, because if they're not proactive about it, it impacts them the most, not the candidate that does or doesn't get the job. You know, and you can see on the right there in that infographic, 46% of job seekers in 2023 were using ChatGPT. I don't even know, again, I'm a slow adopter, Julie, so I don't even know that I was using it for anything in 2023. So that's a substantial number, and you can imagine where we're at here in 2025 and where that number probably sits today, when guys like me who have chosen to avoid it are even adopting it now into my everyday needs. So
I still hear about this when we get to the final webinar interviews, not so much face-to-face interviews if they're actually conducting it in face-to-face, but because we are in a global world, a lot of our interviews, final interviews, even get down and you're just speaking with somebody on a webinar. And I cannot tell you the amount of times the hiring managers come back to me and said, I can absolutely tell you that they were using a tool to give me answers during that interview, because there would be defined pauses before they would return an answer to me. And with a system like eSkill, we can pre-vet that out and make sure that the candidates that are going forward for their final interviews have the actual skills they claim to have. They still could get stumped on a question. I would hope they do. But it's actually been predefined that they have the basic skills that we're looking for. I've also in the past had it to where we knew somebody was amazing during the interview process, and then they'd show up to work in person, face to face, and it was not the same candidate because they could not perform the basics of the work that they were being interviewed for during the entire time. So it helps that there's timed sessions. You can record the sessions. Anything that we can do during the interview process to make sure that the person that is interviewing is actually the person that we're hiring is helpful.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. I had a story in the back of my mind I was going to tell that sort of, it's a slap on my own wrist, but I've been in that situation before too, post-pandemic, when we were doing more interviewing remotely and seldomly meeting candidates in person. I too had a circumstance where, boy, I thought I had the best candidate. They were sharp, the answers were dialed in, and then I made a hiring decision remotely without traveling out to meet that person. And post hire, it was one of the larger hiring mistakes I had made because they weren't even the same individual when I met them in person a month later. And so it completely changed my outlook, and it changed my hiring best practices moving forward. And that became the last time I made one of those critical decisions remotely without an in-person meeting. So very similar to your story, but I'm glad I'm not the only one that's been duped in the past in that way.
Absolutely. It's happened to everybody.
All right. We're going into solutions for a fair process. So of course, it's not just administering a test or an assessment and gleaning something. They need to be determinate. And in order to do that, there's got to be a number of other tools that are inlaid into that process, such as anti-cheat. What good is a remote taken assessment if that assessment can just be copy and pasted and they can figure it out on the fly and cheat with what they're doing? We're not going to be able to glean very much from that. So super important. No tab switching, no copy paste, no unauthorized assistance. Tools like that need to be laid into the assessments that you're utilizing every day. AI-powered proctoring is something many of you, if you've attended online universities or online classes within a university, have probably experienced, where you're showing an ID and you're on camera for the test and you're being given an evaluation as to your propensity for having cheated on that test or using nefarious tactics based on what the camera is seeing. Those are tools that, of course, eSkill does offer. And together, these help ensure a merit-based hiring strategy and that it stays true to that. Not sure if you're administering tests in person or remotely, Julie, but if there's anything you have to expand on that, I'd be happy to hear it.
We've actually done both.
Okay.
So there's many times that we have no choice but to do both.
Sure.
And just like you said, you have to stay one step ahead of whatever the latest and greatest trend is to try and cheat the system. And we have to be fair about it, because not only for our ethical purposes, but when you're going through various audits, which an HR department goes through multiple audits,
Sure.
you have to be able to show proof that it was a fair process.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. That's well said. And it's just if we're just delivering an assessment or something that the same tools that got them to that point can get them over that hump, then we're not necessarily accomplishing much. So absolutely. All right, a little bit about the future of skills-based hiring now. So beyond screening and toward talent mobility, fuel internal mobility. This is another way we talked about. If you're assessing your inbound candidate pool and you're understanding the breadth of their skill set, you're able to make decisions on helping them internally move in the company and move throughout their career, which is critical. If you see on the right, employees at companies with strong internal mobility are staying twice as long, and they're 3.5 times more engaged. They're in charge of their destiny, and they're being recognized for the skills that they bring to the table, not necessarily just within their current role, but other opportunities to serve the company or greater organization. And so organizations can reskill and promote from within utilizing these same assessments. And we talked a little bit about that in the vein of training and upskilling.
We are knee deep right now in workforce planning, and I can tell you that I cannot wait to have eSkill completely embedded into every single decision factor that our hiring managers are making for mobility and that development of those careers. You are right. I would love nothing more than for the internal mobility to keep employees here as long as possible. It cost me time, money, and wrinkles personally when I have to go and replace employees that we have heavily invested in time and money. And it's our reputation in the outside world as well. So anything that we can do to keep our employees longer, and we want them to be internally mobile because they are the future of the company.
Yeah, and you know, we're not in the same day and age where people went into a company and walked out the back door 25 years later, retired. And so it's a byproduct of the nature of today's workforce and always moving, but it's also multiplied and exacerbated by they're doing that for increased opportunity. And a lot of
Yes.
times it's that opportunity that isn't presented to them at their current organization or they don't feel is available for them to pursue that's causing that and exacerbating an already, I guess, job hopping culture that we've kind of moved into. So anything that organizations can be doing to curb that is not only going to increase productivity with that continuity of workforce, but certainly save them money, headaches, and all the wrinkles you talked about in trying to restaff and bring in new individuals and bring them up to speed. So that's a
Yes.
great point. Brings us to what should organizations do? I mean, obviously, we've been talking about this. We'd love if they embrace a hiring process that values ability over appearance. And that goes back to dropping some of those job requirements we were talking about earlier and looking at stars as a larger audience of opportunity for our candidate pool. Using assessments and various technologies to offset the pain we're feeling today from those very same technologies on the other side of the table. Helping to make their hiring faster, make it fairer, make it more predictive. You're speaking my language because I'm the hiring manager. I'm the guy that's got to build the candidate pools and hire from them. And I would love nothing more than a proponent of these tools to enable me to do my job more effectively, efficiently, and get the right people in place. So love hearing the way you speak about the importance of that and the way you drive that home. And organizations that adapt now, they're going to be positively positioned. There is no going back. We talked about that. This problem is not going to become less of a problem tomorrow. And adopting these skills-based tests and using tools to offset that is critical now for organizations.
I agree.
This is interesting, and Julie, maybe you'd seen this, and I'll direct anybody listening to our website to find this tool. This is just a static image, but we help companies, and I think I talked to you earlier, Julie, I said I'd like to unpack a little bit about how you quantify the impact of long hiring cycles and turnover within your organization. But this is how we offer some of our potential clients the opportunity to start to brainstorm that. And this is a calculator. You're able to slide back and forth, and you can see some of the parameters that we have here, from a current employee count to your annual turnover percentages. These are things that most companies know, but they haven't quite pulled it all together to say, well, it's this dollar of a problem, or it's this many hours of a problem. And so I urge everybody that's starting to give this a little thought or is intrigued by the conversation today to stop by our website and give this calculator a look and start to play with it to understand the 1,000-foot view of the problem they may be facing and the problem they may want to address proactively. Julie, did you want to unpack at all how your organization quantifies the impact, either from a time or a money standpoint?
Having sat through a board meeting earlier this week, I can absolutely tell you that quantifying the delays in having an open position, especially in a critical area, goes all the way up to the board of directors. Period, end of story. No matter what size company you are, that will eventually go up to the board of directors if it is too big of a zing. And the HR department can look like the hero, or they can look like the bottleneck. And having a system like eSkill help us push candidates through faster that are better qualified and better hires makes us look like the hero.
Yeah, that's really well said, Julie. And of course, nothing stays hidden from the board meetings, and so
No.
that's a great Great point you touched on there. But it's all about, when you understand how to quantify and you understand how to look at a problem, then it starts to become clear where and how to address it. And that's what we're hoping to help with and encourage and usher along with this type of a tool. While it is simple, it can shed light. So just wanted to call that out.
Absolutely.
And thanks for your expansion on how you look at it within your organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said in the beginning, Julie, we understand, you are a client of eSkill. Your organization does utilize the platform and you do seamlessly integrate with your Paylocity ATS. And so this is just a quick call out on that, on how the flow works. And maybe you can expand on any one of these spots, but our customers are building tests and then they're loading them in and they're creating a job. And then they're automatically inviting their candidates to complete the test straight from their ATS, which is syncing right back in and providing them the results they need, both to validate their candidate pool and maybe perhaps rank stack candidates in order to move through the process. I think I jumped ahead on that. Yeah, using the skills-based data to hire qualified candidates there becomes ultimately the end factor. Does this look and feel a little bit how your organization's utilizing the platform today and the integration with Paylocity?
Yes, and I can tell you that integration was one of the key factors in our decision to choose eSkill. I needed something that was fast, simple, and easy to access and affordable. So we are a mid-sized company. We did not have hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on a system. I did not have years to implement a system. I needed something that could work efficiently and effectively and within budget. And eSkill met all of those requirements. And now my recruiters can simply go into a job when they see the assessment. They have it right there in front of them. They know if it's good. They know if it's a bad assessment. They don't have to spend time remembering user IDs and passwords and which website they're supposed to go to get to the assessments and who did they send an assessment to and who did they not send an assessment to. It's
Sure.
all automated for them. And that saves us hours each week.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And so I'll assume that you're claiming the platform and the integration of it was seamless and easy. And it's one thing for somebody like you and I to sit across from each other and decide that this is the right solution for your organization and we're going to implement it. Maybe could you expand a little bit upon how easy or difficult or what it was to take what you knew was the right solution, come on board, and then train those hiring managers and bring them up to speed to utilizing it? You touched on it there briefly, but was that at all a bottleneck for you in getting that and bringing up that adoption and usage out of the gate with those hiring managers?
So we assessed a dozen different platforms before choosing eSkill, and eSkill ticked every single one of the boxes that we were looking for. The fact that we could create custom assessments, we could decide how long the assessment was going to be, the fact that it was a very seamless integration and quick with our HRIS system, the fact that you can choose from a variety of drop-down assessments in one page. There's not click after click after click that you have to go through to get anything set up. It's right there. It's done. The manager has access to it. The recruiter has access to it. I can create an ad hoc assessment if I want to in just a few minutes. The system is extremely easy to use and navigate and then run reports from if I need to as well.
That's awesome. So safe to say that the investment in the platform was well received by the end users within the organization.
Absolutely. And as an initial team of one doing the integration for the company, I didn't have to have project plans and an army of resources to help me get it integrated, to help me get it adapted. It were simple conversations with the hiring managers. They didn't have to do anything other than answer a few questions, and I was able to create the skill assessments for them. They were able to preview them, test them out, and then we get them into production immediately. There's not a long, drawn-out process like most systems.
Awesome. Thank you. That's great. Thanks for expanding on that. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So obviously, as we near the end of this, the shameless plug, as if there wasn't some of that throughout, for why eSkill, a couple of things that we're doing that I think Julie's talked about today, and that I'll just build upon a little bit are, our differentiators within the market are that robust customization you talked about, the ability to truly go in and mold and make a test that aligns directly to the job you're looking to fill and aligns directly with the skills that you've deemed necessary to understand there's going to be a successful candidate. So you talked a little bit about mixing and matching and being able to do that. And so you're able to assess not just one skill per every test that is sent out, but develop a test that's going to assess a breadth of skills that are going to be required within the role. And that makes for a great candidate experience. Although we've talked a lot about ourselves and what it does to make our life easier, at the end of the day too, it's very important for organizations to keep that candidate experience in mind. That is their brand in the hiring market. And that limited amount of test and refinement of it is going to keep that in check and keep them happy as they go through the process. We've got over 600 subjects and 70,000 questions within our platform. I'm sure you've dug a little way into that, Julie, but I'm sure there's a lot more to go as you continue to work through the different roles you utilize this within. Our assessment experts, they're there to help you along the way. If you're working to understand test results, refine tests, collaborate to understand where can we go from here, it's a living, breathing opportunity to make your tests better and better, to ensure you're getting the very best results that are leading to great candidates. And then, of course, you spoke ad nauseum about the ATS integration and how great and easy that was. And so I think we've beat that to death there. But what's unique, and I'll call it out on the left, is 60% of organizations that approach us have never used pre-hire assessments. The market is moving in that direction, but it is not a saturated use case yet. So many times we're seeing people that are using this for the first time. Julie, was this the first time you've implemented skills testing or behavioral testing into an organization, or had you been there, done that, and then came across eSkill?
So I fortunately have had many experiences with online skill assessment platforms. But I will tell you this, I've never had one that's been this flexible and this easy to implement and get to use right away. And when they told me it was an easy integration, it would be seamless, I kind of laughed and I said, yeah, right. You always say that. Everybody always says it's seamless, it's easy. This was seriously the easiest and a seamless integration, and the effort that I thought I was going to have to put into this process wound up being minimal compared to past systems. And the flexibility of creating the custom assessments that actually give me I can choose from easy entry-level questions up to expert-level questions on the same subject, that's huge. I couldn't get that in my past assessments. I had stock assessment tests that I had to choose from, and I had no choice as to customize the questions. That was something that had traditionally in the past only been available in very expensive systems.
Well, thank you for saying that. And it does mean a lot, especially coming from somebody that's had exposure to so many different systems and worked within them. So thank you. Appreciate hearing that.
Absolutely.
And so real fast, I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining, and especially thank you to Julie. I mean, for giving your time and coming on and having the chat. It was even eye-opening for me. Some of the additions you had to the conversation were really great, and very happy to hear them. And I'm going to turn it back over to Chris to wrap us.
Wonderful. We do have a little bit of time left. We did accumulate a few questions during the conversation here. Would love to ask you a few more items, Julie, if you have the time for us.
Sure.
Wonderful. When you were searching for pre-hire assessments, I know behavioral was not enough, right? Skills, technical assessments were important for you. Why is that added layer so important when it comes to assessing a candidate?
So we personally have a lot of hiring managers that are new to being people managers. They don't know how to go through the entire interview process on their own. It takes hand-holding, and we're a small organization. We don't have massive budgets for training of how to be people leaders. It's me. So anything that I can do to help that process and keep it simple is essential. So eSkill allows the manager to have more confidence that the candidates that they're taking the time to interview have the qualifications and that they can trust the answers that they're hearing during the interview process. They can match them up to the skill assessment.
Wonderful. I love to hear that. And regarding the pain point of, hey, we need a solution for this, a lot of volume is an issue right now when it comes to too many applicants. Is that what you
Yes.
experienced? Too many applicants, too few? How many people were you getting per role?
So again, it'll vary by role. But if we open up a role for a support position, and again, this is a technical software support position, we can get hundreds of candidates flooding in overnight. And as I get a summary every single morning of the candidates that have applied to the different positions, I just cringe at the amount of time it would take to go through these candidates in the past. And now we can simply go to eSkill and see, okay, do they even have the behavioral assessments completed, first of all? And second, do they meet the personality traits that we need for this role to begin with? And that helps us eliminate who we need to reach out to.
Where do you use the assessment in your hiring funnel? Is it post resume, post phone screen, before the interview? Where do you like to send those out to have the biggest impact?
So one of the things that is fantastic about the integration is I can automatically assign an eSkill assessment to a candidate when they apply. So in order for them to complete their application, they have to complete the eSkill assessment that's been assigned to them. We do a very abbreviated behavioral assessment from the very beginning. That's the initial assessment that we look at. And then if we like what we see, we look at the resume, and if they have the qualifications, we'll have a phone call with them. After that initial phone call, I like to start a skill assessment. And then if the skill assessment comes through at a range that's acceptable, then we'll arrange for them to start talking to the hiring manager.
Wonderful. And I like the way that you use that and have those delineations because, we're not here saying pre-hire assessments are the only tool you should use moving forward. It's one of many tools in a toolbox, right? Whether it's,
Absolutely.
looking at a resume or structured interviews, pre-hire assessments, we see as part of that toolkit to arrive at a good hiring experience and outcome.
Absolutely.
You mentioned technical support. Any other roles that you're using eSkill for currently? And then what specific skills are you testing for inside of those roles?
Okay, so we absolutely use it for all of our positions at this point, in some way, shape, or fashion, all the way up to our C-level executive openings. And it depends on the role as to how in depth or what we're looking for. I hire for all corporate roles at PCS, so anything from finance and accounting to our C-level executives, to office admin positions. Everything comes through our recruiting group in-house.
Understood.
So it could be for a C-level executive. I'm really honing in on the behavioral and the aptitude. For a technical role in our engineering team, I'm really going to be very specific about the skills that we need for that specific role. It could be anywhere from Power BI to a front-end developer.
Great. That makes a ton of sense. And when you were going through this process, you mentioned, value, flexibility. eSkill made a lot of sense for you when you ended up pulling the trigger. Was it difficult to get organizational buy-in, or what was that process like? Did you have to showcase it, or it was, hey, this is a no-brainer, let's go for it?
No, I was the final decision maker in what tool we chose. But that was the process that I was evaluating against, was how much flexibility is there? What's the learning curve? Is this going to take an army of specialists to actually implement it and get it to fully functioning? Can I do this on my own? Am I able to pick and choose the questions? How are the questions getting updated in the system on a regular basis because technology changes quickly around here? And we need to be able to have a system that keeps up with the new technologies that are coming through, especially for our product and development teams. So those were all things that I looked at. And then, of course, price. I needed something that was affordable, and a lot of the affordable systems don't give you the flexibility and come with a very bad taste for implementation and adaptability. eSkill checked all the boxes.
I'm happy it was we were able to check all those boxes for you and really maximize the value you're getting from the tool. Last question I have for you is, if we were to take eSkill or pre-hire assessments away from you today and say, hey, sorry, you can't use this, this doesn't exist anymore, what would your hiring process be like? What would you hear from your hiring managers?
Okay, they would have to go back to custom creating a series of questions for me and sending them to me for each and every role that they hired. And they would probably have to spend several extra hours assessing each candidate. And that plus the amount of time that it would take the recruiting team to filter through the candidates just to get them to the interview process with the hiring manager. That would be delayed. So that's dollars that the company would be out of pocket continuously for every single interview.
Jordan mentioned, 60% of companies that approach us have never used pre-hire assessments, but it's one of those tools that once somebody gets their hands on it, they go, oh, this was here the whole time. What have I been doing, right? Why haven't I been using this sooner?
Absolutely. It's a time saver, and time is money.
Wonderful. Well, that wraps up the questions that we have here. Jordan, Julie, thank you so much for your time today. I hope our audience learned why skills-based hiring is so important for organizational success. If you'd like to hear more on the topic or learn a little bit more about eSkill, please visit us at eskill.com. Thanks again so much for attending, and hope you have a wonderful day.